Coming straight from the Filmation cartoon of the 80s, the Sorceress was charged with the protection of Castle Grayskull and was at her full power within the walls of the castle itself. She is the one that bestowed the Sword of Power onto He-Man and later the Sword of Protection to She-Ra. She is one of the most powerful spellcasters in all of Eternia, rivaled only by Skeletor. Here we're going to take a look at all of the micro-action figures that came with Mega Construx Castle Grayskull. Hi everyone, I'm Mac, and this is the countdown to Castle Grayskull. This is the Sorceress.
By the power of Grayskull!
The Sorceress was not one of the original figures of the Masters of the Universe line. In fact, she was only created for the purposes of the Filmation series. This version of the Sorceress didn't even get her own figure until the line was coming to an end in 1987. I don't know the official reason for using this rendition of the Sorceress instead of the one released with the original toy line. I've looked into it a few times, but I can never find anything about it. The only thing I can think is that with the original Sorceress's armor looking like a hooded cobra, Filmation might have thought it would be too confusing to kids to have a hero look like this, while Skeletor and company dwelled in a place called Snake Mountain. Because heaven knows kids can't handle nuance. Due to her Filmation creation, this Sorceress has no origin in the original mini-comics, which you may remember is my favorite incarnation of the Masters of the Universe. The Sorceress is just one of a line of sorceresses that were charged with the protection of Castle Grayskull. In the episode The Origin of the Sorceress, it is revealed that she is named Teela Na. In the episode Teela's Quest, it is told that Teela is the daughter of the Sorceress, something that Duncan, aka Man-at-Arms, has known. Teela isn't allowed to know that the Sorceress is her mother, and she's also not allowed to know that Adam is He-Man. There are some serious trust issues with this show. The Sorceress lives within the walls of Castle Grayskull and is at her full power as long as she remains within those walls. Should she leave, her power diminishes greatly. The Sorceress is very different from the other characters of the Masters of the Universe line. She's very bright and has an Egyptian look to her as opposed to the barbaric look of most of the other characters. She is also more clothed than most of the characters of the line. Her sculpt is different from most of the other female characters in the line, which, until the inclusion of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, were only Teela and Evil Lyn. Even with this minifigure, you can see that her torso is smoothed over and she lacks any armor. Her feathered skirt is unique and nicely sculpted. Her legs are the standard human boot-wearing legs we get with many of the minifigures. Her headpiece, of course, is designed to look like the head of a falcon and is actually part of the sculpt. It is not something that can be taken off. Her headdress is finely sculpted and I do like the look of it. You can see where the feathering continues down her back. The last part of her is her cape designed to look like Falcon's wings. The cape is attached to the figure around her neck and wrists and is made of a heavy flexible rubber instead of being a pegged cape like most of the Mega Construx figures. The Sorceress has all of the articulation expected from a Mega Construx minifigure, however there are a few issues here. First is her headdress. While it is wonderfully sculpted, the piece makes her head articulation virtually non-existent. Another limiting factor to her articulation is her wing cape. The heavy rubber does not flex very well, so when you try to pose her in any way other than with her iconic arms outstretched pose, the cape will bunch up and bend and not look natural at all. The final issue with the cape is that it is too heavy for the figure. Sometimes if you try to pose the Sorceress on anything other than a stand or a pegged surface, the cape causes her to fall backwards. I feel like some of these problems could have been resolved if they had used cloth goods rather than the heavy rubber they used. The Sorceress has one accessory for her, and that is her Falcon Staff. I didn't know what else to call it since I don't believe it was ever given a name in canon, not like the Havoc Staff or the Staff of Avians. The staff is constructed of just two pieces, the main staff piece and a unique falcon headpiece. Posing her with the staff has the same issues as posing her in general. Her rubber falcon cape does not make it easy to display her without the benefit of a stand or pegged surface. The Sorceress does not come with a display stand like individual minifigures. Instead, for a stand, we are given a small sand green piece to pose her on. Finally, Mega Construx also included a small Zoar figure along with Castle Grayskull. There's not much to this piece, it's basically just a molded bird figure with Zor's coloring. Zoar in the Filmation series was the alternate version of the Sorceress, who was forced to assume this shape whenever she left the walls of Castle Grayskull. The in-universe explanation for this is that her power was diminished whenever she left the castle. Apparently, this included the use of her legs. If I remember correctly, it was not widely known that Zoar and the Sorceress were one and the same. There they are, keeping secrets again. Remember, kids, don't trust your friends. Unlike the Sorceress, Zoar did have a presence in the mini-comics before the Filmation series, and the creature was much more dynamic. First, Zoar was a he and was an ally of He-Man and servant of the goddess, often serving as a messenger who could traverse great distances in a short amount of time. Zoar was capable of speech, albeit with a broken and scratchy voice. He also wore a battle harness that armed him with lasers and missiles. At this point, I'm not expecting a fully armored rendition of Zoar. This is probably all we're going to get. But with Mega Construx releasing variants of the other figures already, I'm not ruling anything out. I'm a completionist when it comes to Mega Construx Masters of the Universe series, so I would have bought this figure even if she hadn't come with Castle Grayskull. However, I have to say this is the first minifigure of the line that I am disappointed with. Her lack of head articulation and her heavy cape makes her somewhat stiff when posing, despite her figure articulation. Now thank you everyone for hanging out with me and talking Masters of the Universe. There will be more videos coming down the line for the rest of the minifigures that came with Castle Grayskull, and then Grayskull itself. Please remember to like, share, and comment on what you think of the Sorceress. Were you a fan of this version of her, or did you always prefer the original incarnation like I did? Please remember to hit subscribe and ring the bell so you always are alerted whenever I post a video. Play well, everyone, and as always, thank you for watching.